is going to be an amazing conversation and celebration of Nicole's work. So I thought the very first thing we should start with is, what exactly do you mean by the beauty load?
Well, I'd like to just start by saying thank you so much, Amy, for joining me here on stage tonight. It's, maybe you don't realise, but Amy and I have never met before about an hour ago. Apart from online and interviewing each other on our podcasts. But yeah, it's really lovely for you to do this and support me. So the beauty load, you all might have heard of the mental load, this load that sits on our shoulders and often carried by women, mostly carried by women, about all the little things of the house, of the home, of the kids that need to be done, that just sits there and kind of creates a bit of a burden, a stress for us. I kind of see that we've got another load. Sorry to add to that, but this other load is this constant vigilance about, am I enough? Do I look good enough? Is my appearance enough? And I feel like it's so normal for women. We all feel it. I don't think any of us can escape it because of the culture and the world we live in, that we don't really realise we've got it. So it's a little bit invisible. So the Beauty Load book aims at kind of just creating an awareness that this is another load, and it is felt, and it does have an influence on you, and to the point that it's detrimental. Maybe you want to do something about that.
I love the way that you've connected it to the mental load, because when you understand the mental load, it's something that is completely invisible and we don't even know we're carrying, like you said. And often is this thing that permeates into every other part of your life without you even realising it. And in the conversations you and I have had about the beauty load, it's the same thing. I know that there's a lot of people in this audience that you knew from when you were growing up, your family and your friends, and when they read the book and read your story, might be surprised to know that this was something that was heavy for you and carrying through. But this is the thing. It is for all of us, even if we're not showing it on the outside, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, and you know, some people have commented on me, I didn't realise you struggled so much with this. And I think, well, actually, it wasn't extreme for me. I didn't have eating disorders. I didn't, have to change my looks and in all sorts of extreme ways. But it was actually really, really normal in that it just ate away at my self-esteem, probably. It made me feel like I needed to compensate in other ways, or doubt myself, or sabotage myself. So it was really hard to even, for me to recognise, and I don't think I did recognise it. I was just like, yeah, just normal. It wasn't until after I had my babies, who are now very much teenagers, and I think I just kind of went, hang on, I thought by this point in my life I'd be really accepting and comfortable in my body, and I'm still not. That sort of paired with being a counsellor and being privy to woman after woman after woman, hundreds of women sharing their intimate stories with me and worries with me, and realising every single one of them was feeling it. And me going, oh, so it's not just me then. So really normalising it for me, and then also that was paired with, around the same time, seeing a TV show that I mentioned in one of the chapters in the book, where I saw these women in Cuba who were asked as they were exiting a gym, are you sexy? And every single one of these women just immediately got into their bodies and started gyrating and going, hell yeah, I'm sexy. And I was like, that would never happen in this country. 10 women, and every single one of them were like, hell yeah, like, Or what would we say if that was us? We'd be saying hell no because of this, because of that, because of this, right? So we really fixate on our flaws and faults. And I was like, okay, so this is not personal. This is not about me. This is not about my friends. This is cultural.
So where does that come from, that cultural story in your research and your understanding? Why do we in particular focus on our flaws?
Well, I think it comes from a few places. Good question, thank you, Amy. So I really enjoyed seeing that TV show on Cuba, because Cuba was under communist rule for 30 years, right? I think it's a bit different now because they have social media there. So they did not have commercials, advertising. They only had propaganda, which is very different. So these women were not being told that their bodies were not good enough constantly, and it's 6,000 to 10,000 images per day that we are exposed to on average. It's a lot. It's repetitive. It's like, we all know Pavlov's dog, right? When Pavlov's dog is conditioned to salivate at the sound of a bell. The bell does not give food, but it's conditioned to salivate. It's just the same. We're conditioned to need more, to want to fix, to feel like we're not enough by this constant messaging. So there's that, but I think it's paired with, sorry to say it because it sounds like a cliche, but the patriarchy. Because for thousands of years, women's voices haven't been appreciated or valued, and our worth has not been valued for that, so we've had to put it somewhere else.
And if I could add to that, kind of the description of the patriarchy, I also see, and do you agree, that it also has encouraged us to compete with each other? Patriarchy goes hand in hand with commercialisation, and that it's the individual success rather than the community success. So when you need to look a certain way, your voice is not encouraged, but then also you're told that the person next to you is a competition rather than a competitor, or rather than a friend. That also brings in this level of competition that we carry around, don't you think?
Absolutely, and I think I can even feel it as you describe that, just a bit of fear.
Yes.
Like, it's lack mentality, isn't it? And it's like, I have to keep doing better for myself. It's like elbows out type mentality. And I interviewed Amy on my podcast, and we had a great chat. I interviewed another woman recently who's so I have a Beauty Load podcast that you should all go listen to. So she is an inclusivity and diversity coach. So she coaches businesses on how to be more inclusive. And she's Indigenous, but she's looking after all minority groups. And she was talking about this hierarchy scale, and I liked that language as well. It's like, the more white, the more, there's a real scale, and there's all these different aspects on it. But it's nearly like that competition is wanting ourselves to get higher on it. Yeah.
And all the way down to the beauty. If I'm not skinny enough, then I won't get that guy, I won't get that job, I won't get any of these things. So, without getting too depressed about how screwed we all are, I think it's really important, because you and I have spoken about this, to kind of go cultural, go the big picture right down to the tiny picture as well. So this is the cultural story that we all understand, but then how does that show up in a woman's head when she's sitting in your office and she's turned up to actually talk about her relationship problems, and you're sitting there hearing it and thinking, oh my God, there it is again. So what does that sound like in her head? What does this do internally?
Yeah. So it could be that this woman's partner's just had an affair, and she's like, it's because I'm not pretty enough. It's like, whatever is happening, it's because I'm not pretty enough. Like, I shouldn't have put on all this weight, I should have been more attractive. I don't know, it's just a really easy default for our psyche to go to. But what I've noticed is that really what we're doing is we're gaslighting ourselves. So this word gaslight's a bit of a hashtag at the moment, but the definition of gaslight is that there's an issue, but we minimize and dismiss the issue, but then turn it on the other person and say, you've actually got a problem, you're too sensitive, or you're crazy, or you're a problem. What we're doing with the beauty load is internally gaslighting ourselves, because the problem is these messages and the culture and their interests getting you to want to spend money. But what we do is we internalize it and turn it against ourselves. So that looks like just this, maybe everyone can appreciate that feeling of just that discomfort of I've put on a bit of weight and just feeling unattractive, and like that feeling of, will I be enough? Will I be accepted? Will people like me? Will I be able to find love like this? That's us gaslighting ourselves. Anything where we feel like we have to compensate more, do all the work of beauty, rather than actually.
Yes. Can we talk about that as well, the work of beauty? Because we talk about the beauty load as in this mental thing we're carrying, but also this is a huge load we carry to look a certain way, the amount of money we spend on it. And I know I've said it myself, I don't do it for anybody else, I do it for myself. But internally there is some level of wanting to look a certain way as well.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
And I also just want to say this is a spectrum, it's a scale, right? So there's nothing wrong with us doing the work of beauty. It can be a beautiful thing, it can be an empowering thing, it can feel good. But we need to look at it like addiction, right? There's nothing wrong with having a drink or two either. When it is a problem is when you have to have 10 drinks, or there's a scale to get to sleep at night or to feel okay. And it's the same with the work of beauty. So nobody panic, you don't have to stop getting your hair done or buying clothes.
I literally came from the hairdressers.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing.
The problem is when it eats away internally at our self-esteem, and we believe we are not good enough as a result.
It's that worthiness thing, right?
Yeah.
If I don't do this, then I won't be worthy of.
Yeah.
If you do it just because it's pleasurable and you've got a really cute hairdresser and passes over you every 6 weeks, then go for it. But it is this core worthiness inside that you're trying to really shine the light on.
Yeah.
And it is about opening the door to the realization of how much all these messages around us all the time. Is that the place we start? I know in your book this is the place we start to almost say, hey, did you know that there was this thing and how is it affecting you?
Yeah, I think we have to start with awareness. So we have to start with going, that exists, rather than gaslighting ourselves, rather than going, I'm just really not good enough. We have to go, look at that culture. And actually just want to come back to the idea of gaslighting. One way to really know, well, to get a sense that it is kind of gaslighty is, how do you feel about your children being exposed to these messages? Like, if you're kind of going, I do not want that for my children, but it was okay for you, and you know that for yourself, for your kids, that it would be the messaging that's the problem, but not the kid, it's the same for us. Yeah. And I wanted to take it back to where I was. What was that?
No, that was beautiful, thank you. It was more about, so where do we start, I guess?
Where do we start? Yeah.
And I'd love to come back to the kids as well, but so generally, is it first awareness? Like, did you know that there's this thing that's around you all the time? Because then you start noticing it. I don't know if you've read the book yet, and then you start watching TV, and it's like, I've seen it before, but even after reading your book, it's more.
Yeah.
I can't believe how much I didn't see it before.
Yeah.
And I thought I was aware.
Yes. So awareness is always the first step to change. So always with awareness. At first you're like, oh God, it's everywhere. Like that's always the case, but that's a good thing. I think then it is about really, having a sort of forgiveness, look back over your life of all those moments and just really bringing in the self-compassion, right? Because that's actually the key. The self-compassion, parts of you are worried about how you look, and that's normal. And parts of you in the past have been really scared and really worried, and that also was normal and probably the best adaptation at the time. And for us not to get all judgy about our scared parts, but to go, hey, of course it was scared. Look at all this messaging. Look at all the pressure. Look at the success that beautiful people have in the world. Look at the taunts if you don't fit the mold, and have compassion to ourselves for caring, for feeling it, for acting and feeling it. Yeah.
As you know, I work with mothers day in, day out. And when we've spoken about this, I told you the story of when we talk about the pressure on mothers, a lot of them come up with obviously getting your body back after a baby, but even the pressure of looking a certain way at the school gates, at school drop-off, and they don't even realise that this is something that, on top of everything else, you laugh because it's true. But, and again, here's the spectrum. There are a lot of women who will be, their house is chaotic, they're completely overwhelmed and stressed, and they're rushing out the door, and they'll think, is there any kids here? Shit, I look like crap, and they'll be even later because they can't, they feel a pressure to show up looking a certain way even in that moment. Like, to me, that's another beauty load. This is the pressure we're putting on ourselves, that we can't walk out our front door without looking a certain way. And I remember being brought up that way, you have to wear clean underwear in case you're hit by a bus kind of idea. But, we have to present ourselves a certain way to the world. We have to present ourselves together. We have to look like we've got it together. We have to look a certain way. I mean, that eats away at your sense of self.
Yeah, and the constant comparison, isn't it? And I think social media, deserves a mention as well, because it's really just comparison on the palm of our hand, like constantly there, making us feel less than when we know that it's photoshopped and we know that they've got the best angles, but we're still just comparing ourselves to that. Yeah.
Do you think it's changing? I was in conversation with someone today who said, and he's an Instagram expert, he said, I think we're moving from perfection to reality. People are really not wanting to see that perfect image anymore. We've got a long way to go, but it does feel perhaps that the tide is turning. Do you think?
I do. I think there's so much more representation, and I think representation is so important. So for me, as a young girl, I remember the first time I saw a freckle-faced model in a magazine and just going, oh, I might be okay, right? But it was a really beautiful thing to see, and it's such a cross to bear having freckles. I mean, poor me, right? But if you think about, multicultural diversity, all sorts of ways that we're getting more diversity in the media, and I think it really does matter. You need to see people that look a bit like you to feel okay, to feel acceptable.
And real bodies.
Real bodies.
Lingerie. I'm seeing lingerie ads now with stretch marks.
Yeah.
That was all photoshopped out
Yeah.
when I was growing up. I thought none of those models really had stretch marks. I didn't realise that it was photoshopped. So let's talk about our kids then. When if we are with our kids and we see the ads, or we hear them speaking a certain way about themselves, or any of these things, my first response is to, come down hard on the, do you know about the patriarchy and do you know what cultural stories you've been told and you're not rah. But perhaps that might not
lucky
be the best
kids.
way. I know, my kids are so lucky. In all seriousness, how do we gently support our teenagers mostly through this period where one of the core things they think about is how they fit in and what they look like, while also gently pointing out the beauty load?
Yeah, such a good one. And I think statistically they've found that girls as young as 3 want different bodies. And they've found that young girls who don't feel like they fit in maybe the beauty ideal ways will hold back on their ideas with their peers. They will not participate in class. Like, there's so many statistics now, it's really interesting, but it just puts a fire in the belly, doesn't it? Like, so to answer your question, I think when our kids are feeling it, and they will, it is inevitable. It is not because there's something wrong with the kids, it's not a problem, it is a normal adaptation to the world that they live in. When they do feel it, I think we don't want to gaslight them. That word again, sorry to use it so much. We don't want to say, no, you are beautiful.
Yes.
Which is our knee-jerk response, isn't it? Like, if any of you said to me, oh, I hate my hair, no, it's beautiful, I would knee-jerk that response out of me because I think you're beautiful and I don't like seeing you uncomfortable, so I want to solve that right now and just let you know that it's all good. But that response doesn't actually feel helpful to the receiver because we're feeling something, and we're feeling something that's really real. And so if we just dismiss it and deny it, what we're sort of saying to you is you're silly and you should get over yourself. And that doesn't feel good. So instead, I think we should acknowledge, yeah, it sucks, it's the beauty load, or, I think you should use that language.
It helps with sales too.
And then tell all your friends. Whatever your language is, but this is good language. It sucks, it's hard, I get it. I don't necessarily see why it worries you right now, because to me, you look really beautiful, but I definitely know what you're talking about and I feel it, from time to time. Yeah, and I think maybe, I'm a parent of teenagers and it's still a grand experiment, so I don't know, I'll tell you in 10 years' time if that works. But I think when it comes to our friends, that's nice as well. Where a lot of you in this room are about my age. There's a reason for that. We're not getting any younger. But
His actual size will disappear.
And the beauty ideal is not older. That's breaking news for you. So we do have to grapple with this, and we're going to have our moments, and it's going to feel really shit. So that's what we need to say to ourselves as well. I get it.
I think also when we talk about representation in the media, we really to go that other end of the beauty load, the aging pressure that we feel. It's I remember just a few years ago thinking about, as I sort of got into my mid-40s, I don't even really know what an older woman's body looks like. No, I don't even know how we age, because all the media I've ever seen, all the beauty I've ever seen is 30 and under at the most, maybe 25 and under. I couldn't call to mind strong role models of women. There's a few in Hollywood, but women that I actually can see, read about, understand. That needs to change too on the other end, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that diversity, we need Mum, we need you to be a model now.
No, truly, I think we need
We do.
Yeah, all age representations, because it happens again as we get older.
Yeah.
We try and hang on to our youth because there's no examples or celebration of what that looks like.
Yeah, who are the role models? Who do we get excited about becoming? I mean, that's a genuine
Maybe
question.
we could do an
You have
audience
the
poll.
answer.
Who do we want to look up to?
Yes.
Yes.
Just on matrescence too, Amy, I'd love to hear, because I don't know if you guys know what matrescence is.
No.
Could you tell them what matrescence is, and then tell us what women struggle with when it comes to the beauty load?
So, thank you for asking. My line of work is I'm a coach specifically for mothers, really working with them for nearly 10 years around a shift in identity that they feel when they become mums. So not about the act of mothering, but what happens to you as a woman when you become a mother, and this real sense of you're not who you used to be, you're this amazing new person, but also what happened to the other parts of me. And that's because I really struggled with becoming a mum 15 years ago. I was very attached to the identity of being a journalist at the ABC, and it was who I thought I was. It was what I was proud of. It was everything that I was here to do. I became a mum and completely fell in love with it, and then suddenly wasn't so sure about being that journalist anymore. And that scared the crap out of me because that's all I'd ever known. And so I started asking this question 15 years ago. You know, what happens to our ambition? What happens to our sense of self? Why do we feel differently about our relationships, our friends? Why do things, suddenly I want to go organic and take all the toxins out of my home? And all of these things. Long winding road over a decade, I finally found the answer, which is this divine word called matrescence, which is similar to adolescence. It's this period of transition where we used to think...
With lots of hormones.
With lots of hormones and lots of questions and lots of questioning who you are in the world. And just as when your child turns 13, they are now not an adult. It takes 10, 12 years for them to figure themselves out, perhaps never. But, scientifically, adolescence is about a 10, 12-year period. So too is matrescence. It's this period of understanding how you've changed, who you are in the world now, and that's now what I do. So obviously Nicole and I are completely connected on this idea of the stories women carry inside of them, the stories of who they should be, how they should show up in the world, whether it's as the journalist, the mother, the wife, the daughter, the friend, the feminist, and how we have these real cultural stories that we carry that define us. But when you scratch the surface, you realise, actually, I'm not sure that's my truth. I'm not sure that that's who I am. So in my work, obviously, the beauty load is all through it, because when we become a mother, our body massively changes, of course, and we have this pressure to go back to who we used to be. And just like you can't ask an adolescent to go back to being a child, they will never be a child again. You can't ask a mother to ever go back to who she was before she had a baby. So physically, emotionally, hormonally, that's never going to happen. So what we both have in common is this passion for activism, really, this passion for bringing to light the way that the culture we live in and the stories we tell ourselves about who we should be as women affects us, and we can change it and redefine it so that we can then do that for our kids as well. And I know the activism part is really strong in you too as you continue to build this.
Thank you for saying that, Amy. Let's get out there on the streets.
Yeah.